Yeah, and look, I mean, there was a lot of speculation. I almost feel this might have been a move that came about very recently, like an agreement, because all the rumblings behind the scenes were that Electronic wasn't going to relocate, and now they are publicly saying he has. I think after the Boomich thing, I think it's like, well, first of all, the org is serious; they are going to cut you. You're not gonna be given any grace there. And the other point is as well, I think the entire team capitulates if you lose one other part of it. Because listen, I'm gonna just say this: I am incredibly nervous about Simple saying things that he's saying when he uses terms like the end, when he starts talking about, I'm still going to be making my decision to be confirmed. And he apparently on stream is saying, I'm thinking about taking an extended break from the game. You've got that. I think you had Perfecto today, just tweeted out summertime sadness. These guys at the start of the conflict were saying to each other, we're an unbreakable force. Like, we're not going to let geopolitics affect our individual relationships. We represent Navi, we represent Ukraine, and yes, Electronic does do that. He's as much Navi as I am. It's simple. That was the point at the start of the conflict. That was the big point. Carmack brought him out on stage to say these things to the world, and you fast forward to where we're at now. And I think the reality is probably wore down on Simple. Not to mention, by the way, again, you're right. There was already an iron curtain in place in a way, because people don't know what's being said on VK and people don't know what's being said on Telegram. In the West, we don't use those things for content. And by the way, spoiler, the reason why Telegram is so popular is it's peer-to-peer encrypted. And even then, people are afraid that the state is spying on them right now, because Russia do that. But anyway, people were calling Simple a traitor. People literally were calling him a traitor and saying
even like some of the CIS talent I saw were making implications publicly, along those lines. Yeah.
And it's fucking heartbreaking to see, because it's like, I'm sure Simple's conflicted enough with, like you say, he's the Michael Jordan of this sport. He's an icon to like so many people around the world. His fucking country is being invaded. He's probably got people in his life that have either been displaced or killed as a result of this conflict, and people are saying, oh, you need to go back and go get your gun, son.
I saw there's a decent sentiment of people who also say that repeatedly to Navi players. Like, why haven't you joined the army then? Why haven't you enlisted? It's like, that is outrageous as a thing to say. That is fucking mental, isn't it?
No, but I mean, I've seen people accuse him of like cowardice. By the way, on Reddit, like mods not cleaning up that shit, just comments of people saying like, I lost all respect for Simple when he didn't. Why would you want Michael Jordan to go and get shot?
I know, it's mental.
Like, why would you want that? Like, it's just like, guys, like, you're probably some teenager. You probably have this like idea of like, if someone invaded my country, I'd be there. Mate, fucking, I'll tell you, I lost a friend to fucking friendly fire. I've talked to veterans that are ravaged with PTSD and all. It's no fucking joke, kids. I'm telling you.
They think it's a movie. I know.
No, trust me, it's fucking horrible. And I would not be telling people unless they want to do that. In which case, have at it. Like, I think you're incredibly brave. But if you don't want to do that, you're in no way less of a man or a fucking traitor or something like that. And to say it is absolutely outrageous, especially given, there's an argument that maybe Simple can do more in a way.
Can do way more.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
But man, the vitriol and the pressure and the hate that has been slung the way at the Navi players, and not just the Russian players, actually Simple himself, it's fucking wild. It's like, guys, we gotta take a breath. Like, we really have to. And, look, Electronic relocating, Perfecto relocating, thank God they're sort of able to keep, to make that decision and to keep this team together. But I mean, even so, as we'll get to now, depending on the replacement,
it opens all kind of worms, doesn't it? I know.
So let's go there. So first of all, the COO, I believe, not the CEO, came out and said, Buster, first of all, Yakindar's not joining because we wouldn't pay money to Virtus Pro.
See if you can keep track of this, guys. It's going to be hard. Go on.
Right. Well, Yekindar wouldn't be joining because he's under contract to Virtus Pro. We won't sign someone from Virtus Pro because they're a Russian-owned organization and owned by an oligarch. However, Buster from Virtus Pro might be joining because Buster, we can get out of his contract, and therefore we wouldn't have to pay Virtus Pro anything, we think, probably. So the Yekindar story, they came out and specifically denied, but the fact that they've been in talks with a Virtus Pro player, they haven't denied. And so it gets like really weird. And also, I don't know which way this goes. Like, there seems to be a lot of people kind of like saying, well, listen, yeah, because of what's going on with the sanctions, the contracts don't hold up. And I'm like, yeah, I've seen people try and make this argument in the world of sports,
Yep.
but it's a fucking murky mess. I mean, it's not cut and dry. So I don't know. It seems to me as well, why would you want to aggrandize players from that org if you've got an issue with, it's just crazy. So I don't even know who they're going to get as a replacement now if they're ruling out Yekindar, who, spoiler, by the way, would have been absolutely...
It's amazing.
Yeah, would have been an amazing pickup. Would have been a way in which they could have even upgraded through all of the problems, probably. Because Electronic's done IGL before. It wasn't great and his individual performance took a hit, but it wasn't a particularly big sample size. So I don't know. But I mean, do you have a preference? I mean, and do you think they should be taking anyone from Virtus Pro at all? I mean, assuming they don't pay any money to the org, is it okay?
Right, the main problem I have goes like this. If you just didn't make that statement in the first place about the fact that you won't pay money into Russian bank accounts for your employees, then none of this was even an issue. Like, by the way, just like Cloud9, although they technically didn't directly buy them from Gambit, they bought them from a Norwegian agency who conveniently had just bought them from Gambit, which I don't think would happen if they didn't have a buyer to buy. See, anyway, we get what they did on the abstraction there. Well done. You did a fucking decent job on one hoop to jump through. If they'd done it that way, right? Whatever. That's, again, you're trying to upgrade your lineup. I mean, as you say about the Yekindar one, by the way, that's even an optics win because most people wouldn't give a fuck about the ethical thing of what you said. They'd just go, wow, maybe it's going to be an even better team than with Boomic, which I wouldn't even have initially thought that was possible to come out in this scenario with a better lineup and keep the right Russian players. Like, that's actually essentially that's the jackpot. You should rip the guy's arm off if he offers you that if you're Navi. The problem is that you have made it about this, like, almost like a moral principle, like, I will not fund Russia in any way. And so, yeah, I have an issue with the idea that, like, now essentially you are going to cut off your nose to spite your face, though, because you're going to take the not as good player from Virtus Pro. Neither player is Russian, by the way. People don't know. It's just about the org, like Richard says. You're going to not take him on the basis that he's not still under contract, though. Like, in that scenario, like, as you say, you're still taking a Virtus Pro player. You just don't pay them the money. Like, what are we really doing at this point in time? Like, again, aren't we just fucking, it's a shell game, right? Just moving pieces around going, oh, I did something. It's like, did you? What did you really do? So I've obviously, of the two, I would take Yekindar. And by the way, I'm generally just sick of this because it's mainly G2 that do this. You know, G2 are the ones who go out of their way to actually publicly say that roles wouldn't work. So they go like, well, we can't have Robs. Roles wouldn't work, would they? Oh, can't have Yekindar. The roles wouldn't work. You know what, mate? Your team's shit. Like, I wouldn't worry about roles, mate. Like, these are world-class players. Spoiler, if they play a role, give them that role. And whoever doesn't, he's the one out on his ass. Yeah. Even if he's Bosnian, mate. Like, I don't get, this is a silly game we're playing. So the same thing with the angle here. Being as we're going to have to make someone an IGL anyway. So I mean, imagine he's shifting from some of his roles. Like, I doubt you can play like Electronic can and be the full-time IGL. I think at that point, you just get in as good players as you can, and then you figure out your squad. You know, you do like a fucking Pep Guardiola. You don't do like his classic team. I've built it. You figure it out after the fact if you've got a good, like, Blade's a genius, man. I bet you can figure out how to use these players. I even think of all the people, it sounds like, as everyone's often mentioned, it sounds like Electronic was the player who was grooming for this role anyway, and that you had in mind for it. And even seems, I've always said this, one of the knocks I had against Boomic was, anytime I looked, it looked to me as though, like, Simple Electronic just ran that team anyway at the best of Blade. Yeah. And Boomic just played a role and fit in where he could. So the sad thing is, I do think either way, even the Buster edition would be interesting. I've always thought he was a very solid player. Yeah. I just find it to be complete fuckery, as we're saying on the VP angle. It's like, look, if you don't like the angle that a Rush org's involved at all, just go get someone else then. Go get your own talent. So here's one, by the way, that I know people won't like to hear, but I'll just throw it out there. Get a fucking Ukrainian. Have you thought that through? It's all about Ukraine, right? Here's my problem with you, Navi. Not only is your entire org from day dot being able to survive off oligarch money that wasn't Ukrainians, then it was even implied recently, you'd only fully divested recently. You're getting money, millions and millions from, by the way, the latter millions from the very VP fucking oligarch, the exact guy, not even someone else. But here's another angle. I followed esports history. The team Navi was created with the express premise. It was to show that Ukraine could be the best in esports. That's why the first lineup was all Ukrainians. When they came to CSGO, it was all Ukrainian until you got in the Guardian and people like that, and the initial seized and those people came over. So the weird thing about this is, as an org, the joke is they used to have the Russian flag until the beginning of this year because they had the majority Russian players in their best ever era. So the real premise that's bizarre is this, is like, it's also not a great look as an org, Navi, that you haven't developed any Ukrainian talent. You got bit and that's it. You got bit because the Genius Blade somehow found this guy. You haven't done it besides that. Meanwhile, where's all the talent coming from CIS? It's all bloody out of Russia, you idiots. This is a terrible look. Not only have you benefited from it, but every new team that comes up is all Russian, isn't it? It's like 4 or 5 Russians coming up. So I actually also think, by the way, if this is a long-term approach that like Perfecto and Electronic can stay because they're sort of grandfathered in, as it were, but we're not taking Russians, like I think you're also, as a squad of Navi, it's also going to be hard to re-up players, by the way. There's only so many Kazakhstani and fucking Ukrainian players. There's not an abundance. Loads of the talent now is Russian, you know.
This is why I was going to say, because obviously like Bit came through and he's Ukrainian. They've got that head trick kid over at Navi Junior. And it's like, you know, Navi Junior in the We Play League have done pretty well. I mean, obviously in the past they had Munazi on that roster, but that's like their academy side is an entirely Ukrainian lineup. It got absolutely, in the post Munazi world, it got absolutely battered. I think they lost like almost every game that they played.
It makes sense. He was hard carrying every time I watched him.
But you know, the head trick does seem to be pretty well regarded as a talent, and obviously it stops you have any dealings whatsoever with them, or even a conversation. So you know, I mean, I don't know if he's ready, but he's only 17. But it's you know, it's like I think there's options there if they want to like commit to developing talent from that region, as you say. But yeah, it leaves them in this like weird spot where you're right. There's, you know, like you're gonna have to start looking at like Kazakhstani players now. I mean, you know, and like as I said, I thought Yekindar would have been a shoo-in.
And there's an even worse angle. It goes like this. There are fuck all other famous Ukrainian orgs. So here's the worst news of all, Richard. Who's going to find the next talent that it could even be from either your country or Kazakhstan? It's going to be Virtus Pro again. It's going to be Force. It's going to be all these orgs that are Russian orgs. So the joke is when they find the talent, you can't sign them because you've committed to not signing them. Every time you're going to have to either do the really awkward thing where they pretend, oh, I'm just going to let this contract run out and then not sign. Then they're going to have to leave. Like, it's going to be so awkward. So the problem I have is this. For the initial lineup, it looks like they're going to get a chance to keep most of the good players and potentially re-up with another good player, and this run will be fine. But this is a problem where if this is going to, like, as we're saying, me and you have a different perspective on this. I think people still imagine the war's going to end in a week and then things are going to go back to that we're through the looking glass now, boys. Like, this is going to be decades of this shit. And in esports, like we've been saying, it may well be the case that Russia's about to just be completely sealed off and we're just not going to know what's going to happen, like they were bloody citizens of Shanghai or something. So I think there's a world where this could cause massive problems for Navi just going forwards. Like I say, genuinely, not just for optics reasons. If I were them, I'd be putting loads of fucking money into your academy squad of fucking Ukrainians and bringing up all Ukrainian talent, initiatives. Obviously, you're not going to be able to do much of them right now, but that should be a massive focus. Because again, the problem with making statements like they made, Richard, is this: that isn't a statement that lasts a week. That statement lasts forever until you wouldn't do it. Until you come out and say, we're now signing people who can be paid in Russia. They're off limits. And unfortunately, they're the major talent base at the moment. It's a tough spot to be in. Yeah. That's also why another reason, if I'm simple, even if this lineup's still good, I'd be starting to get a bit depressed about my future. Like I say, mate, this is like I finally got my chance to win everything. And then it all just gets fucked up like this. And then now I'm losing my mate Boomich. And then what? Oh, Electronic Staysburg under these. Oh, give me a break. Like, it's starting to look more and more fucking dodgy if you're that guy. And he's been, in theory, the maddest part is he was able to put up with any amount of shit in his career before this. But like, it's going to come to a head at some point in time. You're going to get frustrated eventually. Like you're saying, the way he's talking, it doesn't even sound like he needs a break. It sounds like maybe I just leave and do I come back? It's like I have to figure out if I want to play Counter-Strike. That's not a fucking good sound with the best player ever saying that.
Yeah, I know. And that's what I'm worried about. Imagine a world where everyone relocates and then Simple's just like, I can't anymore. Like, I need some time. You know, like, because listen, we now live in a world where, and don't get me wrong, I think this is a good thing, but we now live in a world where even star players are starting to feel comfortable saying, I'm going to get a sick note. I can't do this. I need some time.
I bet a lot of people have watched what Device did and thought, I could actually do that, couldn't I? I could force my way for a few months, or I could ride out the end of my contract. That'll be more common.
Even pre-Device. Think about Glaive, think about Nix, getting time off from Astralis after they burnt them out. And it's like, you know what? It again happens in sports. So, if I'm simple, like, who's got more fucking stress like out in the pro scene than him right now, apart from Boomich, obviously. But like, listen, if everyone relocates and Simple says, like, I need a fucking break, I need some time off, it's all going to be for nothing. I think this team, unfortunately, even with a roster change, it's really holding on, like, by a thread. I think I have concerns for its future. And it's a shame because, again, in an alternate timeline where this fucked up shit doesn't happen, we're probably talking about one of the greatest things all time.
Here's another thing I'm really uncomfortable about, and it goes like this. Imagine you're electronic and you move your family, you take your kid, you take your wife, you go to Serbia, I don't know which place, Serbia or Ukraine, one of the two. You go there, you get the paperwork, everything's going well, right? Two things. One, what if you shit CS a year from now? Fired? Do you have to go back? How do you go back? What if it's an iron curtain? How do you get back in? What do you do then? Can you go to your family? Two, here's another good one. What if, as you say, Simple takes 6 months off and the team's just shit and they don't want you anywhere? Maybe now they go, why did we bring you guys over? It was only really to keep Simple happy. Like, there's so many scenarios where, like, people have done that thing again where they're just thinking if the best case scenario happens. Yeah, it all works out then. There's a million scenarios that work out badly for everyone, it sounds like.
Yeah, totally.
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.